and welcome to Nan Loves Food. I am Ann here today with our very first video in the Instant Pot Basics series. So today we are going to cook the very simple and very basic white rice. But I can promise you, even though this is like super basic, it is one of those things that we use all the time. It is a staple in our home, as it is in a lot of homes, I think. And nailing the perfect white rice is something that can be a little difficult to do on a stovetop, and it is absolutely no fuss in the Instant Pot, which is why it's one of my favorite things to make in the Instant Pot. Cooking rice in the Instant Pot is a little different than it is in a traditional stovetop way of cooking things. Partially because in the Instant Pot, we're just gonna use the 3-quart today. Because the water is trapped inside the pressure cooker, you actually need less water, which makes sense, right? You know, when you cook on the stove, the water will evaporate and steam out. In the Instant Pot, it doesn't do that. So you actually need less water than you do when making traditional rice. So that's probably the first thing that people mess up, is they assume that you need the same amount of water. Traditionally, it is a 2-to-1 ratio. In the Instant Pot, we're gonna do about a 1.5-to-1 ratio. So we're gonna use 1 cup of rice for today, and then I will put 1.5 cups of either water or chicken stock or whatever stock I have on hand to make my rice. So if you want really, really delicious and flavorful rice, highly recommend adding stock instead of water. It will give it much more depth of flavor. It will add a little fat, especially if you're using like homemade bone broth. There's a little bit of fat in there and there's that collagen in there, and it all just goes right into your rice and it makes it moist and flavorful and delicious. So you can also use, we are big fans in this household of the Better Than Bouillon. This stuff is delicious, and if you do not have homemade chicken stock on hand, you can throw just a couple of tablespoons of this in and it is awesome. So just mix according to package instructions for chicken broth, and you can add that to your rice and give it a little extra oomph. Today's rice is actually just gonna be used for some pretty basic Chinese food. We're doing a broccoli beef, so I'm not gonna do anything fancy, no chicken stock, no nothing. I just want plain white rice. There's a lot of controversy in the world of rice about rinsing versus not rinsing your rice. I will be the first to tell you that this is one of those things that there is absolutely not a right way to do. There are different strategies with different outcomes, and so you need to know the outcome that you desire and pick the strategy based on that outcome, and that is what the right method is for that type of cooking. There are certain types of rice and certain applications for rice where you want kind of like a sticky, starchy rice. The 2 examples that come to mind are risotto, where you're trying to get that arborio rice to get like creamy, where it like tastes like you got cream in your dish even if you don't. You definitely want the starch to release and make that creamy thing happen. Also, when you're making something like sushi, where you're reliant on that rice to stick together so that your roll stays together, right? You want sticky rice there. There are also plenty of dishes that are traditionally eaten with sticky rice, where you scoop up some rice and you scoop up some of the dish and you throw it in your mouth, where the rice is actually kind of like your vehicle, like your utensil to get the food into your pie hole. That's awesome. Love sticky rice. For me personally, for this application, which is gonna be Chinese food, I want fluffy white rice. I don't want it sticky. I want it to be like where I get individual grains that aren't all stuck together. So in order to get that to happen, I have to rinse the remaining starch that is on these rice molecules off. So that is when we rinse our rice. For most of the applications in my home, I rinse my rice, unless it's like risotto or I'm making sushi or something like that. So what I'll do, so I have these giant colanders. They actually have these at Costco right now, this Cuisinart brand. And this is awesome. I use it all the time in my kitchen. I've got the set of 3. I'll link the set down below in case you want to get some. But what I will do is I will take my 1 cup of rice and I will throw up my colander. And I don't know if you saw that, but like some starch just came out. So what I'm gonna do is just put this under the sink, rinse it out, and as I'm rinsing, I'm just gonna like move my hand around to make sure that I get all the little granules in there rinsed off thoroughly. And I'm just gonna rinse it until that water coming out of the sink runs clear. Because it's just me in my kitchen. I'm not gonna take you along for that journey. But trust me when I say, put it in a colander, run it under water, and rinse, 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 rinse until it's not starchy anymore. So I'm gonna do that and then I'll come back. So one of the reasons I absolutely love making rice in the Instant Pot, other than it's pretty much foolproof, which I certainly appreciate, is that I can actually saute my rice or I can saute aromatics in the Instant Pot before I make my rice. So if I were gonna make, let's say, a Mexican rice, which is something I'm gonna put on the channel here shortly, that's definitely gonna be one of our Instant Pot basics videos. I will saute an onion in the bottom of the Instant Pot with a little bit of butter as like a foundational layer of flavor for my rice. So that is one thing that a rice cooker cannot give you. It's one of the reasons that the Instant Pot will sometimes win out in terms of my preference for cooking rice, because I can saute in it. And sometimes you want to, you know, toast that rice and get that like depth of flavor from that, or you want that onion or your garlic or whatever you're doing. So the Instant Pot is amazing for that. So let's get started getting this actually in the Instant Pot. All right, so if we were going to saute something before we started cooking our rice, we would use this here saute button. All you have to do is push the saute button and it automatically starts going. So as you can see, this is a 3-quart Duo Mini. Some of these buttons are a little bit different depending on what model you have. So that's just letting us know that our saute is ready to go. So I think every Instant Pot has a saute button, so that should be the same. So if you want to do that, hit that button. We are going to cancel that function. And honestly, rice is one of the easiest things to make because it literally has its own button. So this is one of the handful of buttons that I actually use on this thing, rice. So all we're going to do is we're going to take the rice that we have rinsed. We are going to throw it in the Instant Pot. We are going to take 1.5 cups of water, some kosher salt. We are going to place the lid on and lock it into place. So it's just, that's open, that's closed. It sings to you so you know exactly when it's open and closed. We are going to turn this little guy up here to the sealing function. So it actually, I don't know how well you can see that. It's dirty, I use it all the time, so judge me if you must. I cook in my kitchen. Sealing, not venting. So venting is here. You'll definitely not use that yet, but you'll just turn it to that sealing function. Then we're gonna hit rice. All right, so the alarm just went off and it moved back to the keep warm button, which is what it will do when it's done cooking. So now we need to do a quick pressure release. Sometimes you'll see this in recipes as a QPR. And what that means is that we're just gonna take this valve and we are going to move it from the sealing to the venting position. Now, I know if you are new to the Instant Pot, this can feel very scary, and if it helps you to use a spoon or whatever, kind of stand back the first couple of times, I know I certainly did. I'm gonna move my camera back, but I'm very confident now I do it with my hands, but I just keep this here, and what's gonna happen is hot steam is gonna come out. So you wanna stay away, this can be very dangerous. This is the part where you can burn yourself, truly. So just move this from here to here, and all the pressure is gonna come out of the Instant Pot. So you'll hear the pressure kind of coming out. The sound is less and less as the pressure gets lower. And once this pin drops here, that pin, then we will be able to open, there we go, and now we can open our Instant Pot. One thing I did not know until late in the game is that with the Instant Pot lid, it actually fits, like, you can shove it in this thing here and it will hold the lid for you. Da-da, miracle of miracles. And inside we have our perfect white rice. And you can see it's not too sticky. It's just right. So another cool thing about the Instant Pot is that it does automatically turn to this keep warm function, and that does exactly what it says it's going to do. So if I don't need to eat this right now, I can keep it warm for as long as I need to. Now obviously with rice it will overcook in time, but that's cool. You know, sometimes you just don't have everything assembled at exactly the right time. All right, so here we are with perfect white rice. ready to be enjoyed. Now, you can always, once the rice is done cooking, taste it for seasoning. Highly recommend you do that. Sometimes it's hard to guesstimate the right amount of salt. So certainly check for salt or any other flavorings that you might be interested in doing. But yeah, perfect white rice. Delicious. So if you found this video helpful, please give it a thumbs up. Also down below, we will have a link to my free Instant Pot printable that has all of the cooking times for my favorite things to cook. Rice is actually on the list, even though it just says to hit the rice button. So you probably don't need to reference that, but sometimes, I don't know, I just forget that the rice button is on there. And you can also adjust. So one of the few things that you will need to keep in mind is the Instant Pot does a little bit differently depending on your altitude. So if you're way high up and it's dry, or so I am at sea level or just about. In Indiana, we're very flat and relatively damp. I'm in Indiana, so we're at a pretty low elevation. So if you're running into issues or you don't like exactly how the rice turns out, you can definitely adjust based on your altitude. So you might actually Google somebody's recipe that is at a higher altitude or a lower altitude depending on what your needs are. So it can just, the pressure in the atmosphere can obviously affect the pressure that happens in your pot. So just a little thing to keep in mind if you're not getting exactly the results that you want. It might be a little different if you are in a different location or a different type of altitude than I am here. So thank you so much for watching today. If you haven't already, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. This is the first of many to come of the Instant Pot Basics series, where I'm going to show you how to make all the things that your Instant Pot is good at making. So thank you so much for tuning in today. We'll see you next time. Bye.